On today's video, I'll be interviewing my mum, Billie Green. I speak to her about her experience of autism before I was born and what it was like bringing me up. We talk about the issues I had through education and employment and talk about the diagnosis stages and how they need to improve. I'm very proud to have a mum as devoted, caring and kind as she is, and today for the first time on video we talk about her life and mine. Hi there and welcome to another video of MaxiAspie as part of the Autism Connections, and today my guest is my mum, Billie Green. Mum, thank you for coming on.
Welcome.
So I always start off with my first question, which is what is your connection to autism?
You?
Pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Did you hear of autism before, obviously, I was born?
Only vaguely, being a connection with the MRI injection.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of parents frightened of having their children done with it. But yeah, that was the only thing that I associated with autism, particularly at that particular time.
What about like when you were in school? You know, was there a lot of kids that had like conditions or?
No, you had kids that were just, in our day, were backward.
Yeah.
That's what it was just known as. The people had problems with reading and writing. So I suppose I could say that I was one of them children that was classed as backward when I was at primary school.
Do you think that was like the right terminology for now?
What, backward?
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, definitely not. Because it just gives you that stigma of being thick.
Yeah.
And you're not.
What made you feel that you were like backwards when you were younger? Did you ever think you had a condition or?
Well, no, I don't think mine was as much. Well, I don't think it was a condition. But when I was 18 months old, I had a condition that was called mastoids, and it's basically a fluid that can travel up to your brain, and in them days terminology would make you backward or severely mentally retarded, or it could kill you.
And how old was you then?
18 months. So, and I was also deaf in one ear, so that could have played a part of me having to have special help, you know, more help within reading and learning.
Do you feel that there was any sort of help from when you were at school as to what there is now?
We went to reading classes, so we had extra reading classes if we were struggling with reading, but that was it. We never had any extra help.
No sort of SENs or SENCOs?
No.
So obviously when I was born you had Lewis beforehand.
Yeah.
Obviously Lewis is neurotypical, not got any conditions that we know of.
What we called the norm.
The norm.
Yeah.
So I suppose what resonated different from when I was born versus how Lewis was behaving? What made you think?
Well, there was nothing up until you had your last injection. To me, you were developing just as well as he was, if not even better. Okay. in development. And then it was only up until you got a bit older where you should be saying stuff that you just didn't. So I took you to see the health visitor. I think you were about 2 years old then and weren't talking at all. And referred you to speech therapist, and it was the speech therapist that picked up that it wasn't just your speech, that she thought you were delayed in quite a few other things as well. So, and then hence got the ball rolling to see specialists.
So when I had the injection, do you think it was the injection, or do you think you're just born with autism and that is what it is?
No, see, it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell because
Obviously a lot of people say it's not the injection now.
So even though that to me you were developing fine, then it did seem strange after that time, after having the injection, that certain things sort of started to happen with like no speech. You were not as quick as walking. I think Lewis was about 10, 11 months, where you were probably about 15 months.
Okay.
But that is typical anyway. So, but yeah, it was your speech more.
And what age can I speak to again?
5.
5.
Yeah.
When would you say I could speak like fluently, you know, without having to sort of, because I imagine at 5 I probably was still trying to.
Well, I think doing the Macinton helps.
Yeah.
Because you know what it's saying.
Yeah.
So it takes then pressure off of you. So that's why they introduce it, that the Macinton, it takes pressure off of you trying to get your words out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that after a while it just becomes fluent.
Yeah.
Later on. So it's not as though that you were struggling when you started speaking. Once you got going, well, then there was no stopping.
Obviously.
Yeah.
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 So, obviously, I've been born. What age would you say you started to think that you needed a diagnosis?
Well, it was picked up that you were delayed at the age of 2, so they referred you to a specialist, and then they done all your chromosomes because they thought you may have got Williams syndrome. Anyway, they came back, they were all fine, and then they referred you to, so it went on quite a few years seeing different doctors, paediatrician doctors up in the hospital, and then we went to one other, Dr. Sumutra, and he was absolutely brilliant, and I think you see him right up until you were 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was the one that sort of diagnosed you. Not officially diagnosed, because then you had to go to CAMS to be officially diagnosed, but he kept telling me to push for it. So you were at the age of 6 when you were first then diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
But they don't normally like to put you on medication until after the age of 7.
Yeah.
But you went on it at the age of 6.
Do you think that was, like, looking back, do you think that was a good move by them, or do you think they should have done other stuff first? Yeah, like cognitive behavioural therapy and things like that.
Well, we did try that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but there's not enough. There's not enough of that.
Not enough time as
no,
well.
there's so your time limit. So you might only see one every, like, I don't know, every month or every 2 months.
I think near the end it was like one every year, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it gets shorter and shorter. So to me, that it's just not enough help.
Yeah.
You know, you need it constant all the time. And yeah, okay, parents to sort of follow it up, but when you're a parent and you've got that working life environment, it's just really difficult.
Yeah.
So we do rely on the schools, or, you know, whoever, you know, because you're out to school all day.
Yeah. And then you're at work.
We're
and
at
Dad's
work.
at work.
Yeah.
And then it's something that just another day.
Yeah. And you could never concentrate.
Mm.
No. So so you couldn't concentrate. So then it's a case of then going on the medication to help you sit and be able to concentrate, to be able to do your work.
Do you think, like, at one point, though, that the medicine had a completely knock-on effect, because it was like I wasn't even there?
Yeah, of course it did. And I think then it's getting the right medication that suits the individual. What may be not good for you could be good for others. So it's just change it until we find that right medication.
So,
and you were on a high medication.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you were on 80 milligrams, and that's high.
And what drug was that? Do you remember? So I know I was on Ritalin at one point, and that
you was on Ritalin.
That gave me tics, didn't it? In the end.
No, it's the Concerta that gave you tics. Yeah.
Okay.
So so that caused tics. So then we have to take you off of that.
Because some of the drugs that you take, after speaking with obviously John, some of them are like as addictive as Class A drugs, which is why when you go to the chemist,
they're putting us safe.
They're putting us safe.
Yeah.
Because
the drug people try to break it. Yeah. Yeah.
So all in all, from when I was born to getting a diagnosis, how many years did that take in whole, and what do you feel that was your biggest barrier of getting a diagnosis?
Time. That's the bugbear, because everything is like it's not a quick process. That took from the age of 2 till the age of 6 of being diagnosed with ADHD.
Was that the original diagnosis as well that you were going for?
No. So then I was pushing for autism.
Yeah.
So that took probably another 2 years or more on top of that.
8 years old.
Yeah, and then another 4 for your OCD.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from start to finish with all 3 things.
And then epilepsy later on.
Yeah, and then your epilepsy.
But she didn't really need to push that.
All of these conditions normally all come together.
Yeah.
You don't normally just get one.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere along the line, how late it is or how early it is, you're bound to get one or the other. They all seem to come part and parcel of one another.
What do you feel the help? So obviously I've got all the diagnoses.
You were very lucky because you were under specialists. So we actually managed to get you statemented before you started nursery.
And what impact does that have of having a statement, before you start mainstream school?
Because that way, if you do it after, you're lost in the system.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was really lucky that they knew, obviously, that you had issues, you had problems, but couldn't pinpoint what it actually was, but they knew that you were going to need that extra help. So, plus because you couldn't speak, so I used to have an educational psychologist come round once a week to relieve me as much as it was to teach you with the Macinton, and I had to learn it as well.
Do you remember any of it?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I remember biscuit.
Yeah, biscuit. Yeah, drink. Yeah. Milk.
Is that milk?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I remember please.
Lady. Yeah, rabbit. A horse. Yeah. So I remember quite a bit of it. I think if I got it right.
But
man,
then we had
man.
But then we had quite a good
man, boy, I think.
But then we had quite a good, I'd say, connection anyway, because I watched videos when I was younger and I could just literally,
Yeah, I knew.
And you knew what I wanted.
Yeah.
And Nan would be like,
what did he say?
What did he say? What did he want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I knew exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a mum. I think any mum would be the same.
Yeah.
It's funny because you listen and it's got like different tones
Yeah.
to it. So things in particular, you hear that same tone, and it's funny what that can actually do to make you realise that's what you're saying, and it's purely just through the different tones, the sounds. Yeah.
So once I've got diagnosed, what do you feel? Did you
So
feel?
you were statemented.
Yeah.
So we got you statemented, and that's when they first put into playgroups and nurseries for Macinton signing.
Mm-hmm.
So they made that sort of like compulsory
mm-hmm.
that they would learn the Macinton. So you sort of, in your own little way, you created that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was never ever done until you came along.
So obviously, growing up, you see Lewis supposedly doing, well, not doing better or advancing quicker in life or school, learning things more.
The thing is, you were diagnosed of having issues, but not actually with a diagnosis, but we sort of roughly knew that's what it was. So there was no, you just didn't compare. You were just too different. Yeah. Lewis was just Lewis, and you were you.
Yeah.
So there was no comparison. You
did it
just
worry you at points though?
Yeah, I always thought, you know, what are you going to be like when you're older? Are you going to have a normal sort of life? Or, you know, are you going to be able to do things you know, everyday sort of things? Are we going to have you at home for the rest of our lives? You know, or, you know, what happens to you if anything happens to us? So, yeah, of course, all of those things. Relationships, the whole lot.
Yeah.
You know, you just want your child to have the best. And, yeah. And it was the same when you was at primary school, because obviously you went to first for them to assess you, and then you were there. You were only supposed to get a year there, but then they decided that you needed longer. So again, you sort of beat the statistics of, you know, of needing that extra help. So anyway, I think you had about a year and a half there in total, and then they decided that you would be okay with the extra help, supported with a one-to-one at mainstream primary school.
How do you feel the help that you got there?
Very good.
Yeah. Because
it was a small class, so they could give you that attention.
Yeah.
So
that environment.
So they were very good. When you went to normal mainstream, okay, it was more difficult, but you had your one-to-one, and you liked your one-to-one.
Miss Anderson.
Yeah. So that made it
10 times
better. Yeah. But again, mainstream schools don't always know how to deal with people that have got autism in not always the correct way. It's like, I can remember a situation where you kicked a door, and they turned around and said to you that we'll deal with you on Monday, because this was a Friday. And all weekend I had help from you, because you didn't know what was going to happen, so the anxieties just escalated, because if you're going to punish, or you're going to be told off, you have to have that punishment or be told off straight away. You can't then linger. You can't cope with that, whereas another child would just go home of the weekend and just play and but no. So I actually went down to the school and said to them, if there's going to be any punishment for what you done, that's fine, you have to accept the punishment, but don't let them know what it's going to be. Do not leave them hanging, because they can't cope.
if I remember, they didn't do anything in the end, did
No,
they?
they didn't.
So it was just anxiety and a weekend for you.
Yeah, of hell.
Of hell for nothing.
Yeah. Because next time I'll send him round to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is hell.
Would you say you treated me and Lewis differently growing up, or would you say that you treated us the same, but you were? I don't know, because a lot of parents sort of think, oh, I can't do that because he's autistic, or I can't. Some parents will say, my son is on their game console all day. I don't know what to do. If I take the game console away from him, he's going to have a meltdown. What do I do? It's a bit of a lose-lose, because as you say, I take it away from him, it'll be hell all weekend.
Yeah.
If I let him have it, then he's not going to know any different, and he's just going to continue playing his game console.
Yeah.
So, as a parent for you, I can imagine you just taking it out of Lewis's room and going, put up with it, but at the same time I can imagine you doing that to me anyway. Because you were fair.
There's different situations. So here's a scenario, and it doesn't matter if you've got autism or not, every child is different, and the way you punish a child doesn't always work for one and work for the other. So here's a situation where you liked to go out, yeah, or it was the other way round. I have to think about this now because it was a while ago. So, no, so that's it. Lewis liked to go out.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Sounds more Lewis.
Yeah. So Lewis liked to go out, but you used to like to stay in and watch your telly.
Yeah.
Right? So if I turned round and said to you, right, you're banned, you're not going out for 2 weeks, right? And that was both of your punishments, it wouldn't bother you, because you'd be indoors anyway watching the telly. Yeah? The only person it would bother would be Lewis. So therefore, I had to say, right, you're banned, you're not going out for 2 weeks. You need your telly for 2 weeks. So you have to do the punishment where you know it's going to hurt the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, for them to realise. Because if I said to you, you're not going out, and you say, well, that suits me, I've got my telly.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered.
But in terms of me having a meltdown, even though it was probably hell for you for 2 weeks, would you still encourage people that it's something that you need to do? Otherwise, they won't learn.
Well, what you've got to realise is that how much is it is autism and how much is it is just naughty behaviour, because all children...
I don't believe in naughty behaviour. I believe that the behaviour is naughty, but there's a reason why they're exhibiting
Yeah,
it.
but we were always brought up it's naughty behaviour.
Yeah.
So I'm in that era where it's naughty behaviour. Yeah? So you play up.
Yeah.
Yeah? So it's finding that balance, and that's hard. Yeah? Because...
I love how I went, don't believe in naughty behaviour. You're probably thinking, yeah, alright. So I think you used to say that.
Yeah, after you created most of it. So yeah, I don't think that I don't think as a parent that you can blame it all on autism. Yeah, because there is a degree that is just normal behaviour.
And some people,
and
not
don't
all.
let them get away with it.
And some people, not all, may still use it as an excuse.
Of course they do. I know so many people that use it as an excuse. Or their age. You know, oh, he's only 4.
Yeah.
Yeah? Or, yeah, he's got this sort of condition.
But I think the longer you excuse your behaviour for things, it almost limits as well what you believe that you can do.
I think that's why people look for... Some people, it's good to have that diagnosis because it puts that label on it. So you know, for peace of mind, well, yeah, maybe he is a bit like that because he's got this.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Yeah, there's reasons behind certain things, but it doesn't excuse bad behaviour.
Yeah.
Yeah. So therefore, you know, you shouldn't use that as an excuse to excuse your child for being naughty.
Yeah, if someone's hitting someone and they turn around and go sorry, it's because I'm.
Yeah, that's
you know,
no excuse,
it's
because
no excuse.
you still have to educate your child
Yeah,
is not to behave in that manner.
and yes, it's a reason,
Yeah.
but it's not. It's
For
still not.
example,
It's still not acceptable.
we say about the eye situation, of looking people in the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of autistic people won't look people in the eye
Mhm.
because they can't have that eye contact. But I've always taught you it's rude not to look people in the eye when speaking, and I've put that in an early age.
Yeah.
And now you can look people in the eye.
Early intervention.
Yeah,
To,
yeah,
And you've always said as well with OCD, they sort of work against each other because people with OCD have high morals.
yeah,
So if you instill that in them,
yeah.
they will want to look people in the eye
Yeah.
because
It's morally right.
yeah,
Yeah, because I've always believed it to be rude that you can't look somebody in the eye.
so
When
obviously
you're talking to them, you should look at people when you're talking to them, because to me it seems to say you're not acknowledging what they're saying.
so obviously going from primary school into my secondary mainstream school with a
Yeah,
ASD unit,
yeah.
what sort of decision did you have in that? You know, so was it your decision to send me to there, or
No.
so what happens during that process? Because I imagine a lot of people get
So
the
you have
decision.
quite a few people involved,
Mhm.
and then you have the educational
Health and care plan, or
psychologist.
yeah.
And the one I had, to be honest, I didn't like her.
Mhm.
She was just quite snobby in the fact that everything should be about the education,
Okay.
and to me that was least of my worries.
Getting me through school was probably the priority.
Getting you through life.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I wanted you, I couldn't care if you haven't got any qualifications. There's plenty of other people out there that have no problems, that have got no education whatsoever.
Mhm.
But they can have a normal life and still work,
Yeah.
right? So to me, education was never top priority. And does it really need to be with someone with those conditions?
I always say if the kid is happy in the environment he's in, it's better than going somewhere where they won't be.
Exactly.
And I know my other school that I went to after that, I know I was more happy.
Because you could be who you needed to be and you didn't have to hide.
Yeah, but the environment at times was probably not the best.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You know the environment it was like. You know.
In which one?
Yeah. You know, it was very hostile. It
Yeah,
was very
volatile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you say, the reason that school worked was the education. Yes, it could have been better, but it wasn't the forefront of it.
No.
It was about the people.
No homework.
Yeah.
How nice.
Yeah.
Not to have homework.
No stress, no anxiety.
Exactly. I think children do enough during the day without having that added pressure of coming home and having homework and having added pressure as a parent to instill that for them to sit there and do that with their children is well.
It's like we're almost teaching our next generation, when you go home, you still need to work. Yeah, like I know when you were a kid, you still would have had to have gone home and done homework, but then maybe not. Was it as much?
We did it secondary school.
But not primary.
No, we might have took a book home.
Yeah.
We had reading, so we took a book home and we read.
But now now as an adult though, you can go home, you can shut off from work, you can have your sort of downtime.
Yeah.
But
I think
with
children
kids,
need that as well.
with kids it's like as soon as you get home.
I think when you get home, if you want to go out and you want to read a book, alright, I'm not saying don't encourage it, but But if you want to read a book, then read a book. But I don't think it should be forced upon.
Compulsory.
I think that it should be family time.
Yeah.
Then that you'd be able to do what you want to do. If you want to go and play a game, play a game. If you want to play outside, play outside. Do whatever. You know, you still got to learn other things in today's society. You know, your everyday
life
stuff.
skills.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of kids will leave school, they won't know how to write a resume or what a CV is, but they know how many wives Henry VIII had. And it's a bit like, well, great, but that's not going to get me my next job. It's important, but it's not going to get me my next job.
But they go on as well as to regards with education being important. I think it's important to read and write, because before long, in years to come, no child will have any handwriting skills whatsoever.
Especially with technology.
It's all done on tech.
Yeah.
And they will not know how to write.
I mean, my writing is still not very good.
No.
And I don't think it
No,
ever has
and
been.
I've took on a few of the younger lads, and even their figures, they can't seem to write their figures. I actually asked one if he was slightly dyslexic.
Yeah.
Because his writing and his figure work was just atrocious. And I think it's because everything's done on phones. You've got your texting, your messaging.
Yeah.
Everything is done on tech. Yeah, and it's not handwritten anymore.
So my secondary school, where it had an ASD unit in,
Yeah.
do you think that they helped at all? And who made the overall decision in the end to obviously get me to go there? And then who made the decision, obviously, to move on?
So your statements all come from the council. So it's all funded from the council on the hearsay of basically the educational side.
Yeah.
So you've got an educational side that's within the council department. So they make that final decision on different information that's put together in like a pack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they then come up with that sort of school.
And the school that you wanted was just out of the question.
Well, it's not that it was out of the question. I mean, I only had the choice of the two schools, which they thought then you were too bright to be in that sort of environment, because they are quite severely, or the ASD unit, because what you've got to remember is when you were younger, there wasn't a lot of autistic schools, you know, that ASD units were on. These were new. So when you went, these units that you went into on a normal mainstream, they were just up and running. They hadn't been there that long.
Do you think they work?
My opinion, I think again it all depends on the individual. Again, the condition, because you can get different types of the autism, which obviously autistic and Asperger's, where you can get people that are quite recluse, withdrawn, that it doesn't bother them that they don't mix. And then you've got the other side of the spectrum where they want to mix, and it's not always appropriate behaviour and how they mix, because they don't know how to. So to me, I always think, which is the hardest? Would it be easier to have a child that's quite withdrawn? Or is it harder than having a child that wants to interact but doesn't know how to do it properly and gets frustrated and loses friendships from it? To me, personally, I would say the one that's more outgoing is the harder one. Because you're always trying to teach all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I used to sort of like gently kick you under the table. There's like a warning is to say, right, you've said too much now. Time to shut up. I expect you remember that. So
signs.
So it was So it was the only way that I could do it at that particular time, is to
Sort of
give
just
you,
nudge.
give you that nod. Is right, okay, you're going on too much and you're going off key. It's not appropriate with what you're saying anymore. So that was quite hard. So when you say about going into a mainstream, does it work? Again, if you're quite withdrawn and it doesn't matter that you don't care what your peers think, or that it doesn't bother you mixing, then yeah, fine.
Do you even feel though, even though you're withdrawn, but say you're not meeting educational standards for the school, do you think that is still going to end in a one sort of possibility anyway of being managed, moved out the school because you're not educationally there?
I think a lot of the schools, I don't think it's so much the educational managed. I think it's more the behaviour.
Yeah.
And as long as that behaviour's within a good standard, that they cause no problems, then I think then they're quite willing to then keep on with them, to educate, or try their best as they can.
For me, do you feel that they gave up?
Yeah, probably. I think you were probably too much for them to handle, and I think they weren't used to that environment.
Even though being an ASD unit?
Yeah. Again, it depends on that type of autism that you've got. And the trouble is, you wanted to fit in with the mainstream, and it didn't work because you had to then pretend that you were someone. Yeah, and then that caused extra problems, anxieties, everything else. But then, as soon as you came out from there, and all the kids were more or less the same, you all had not the same, but you all had
we
your
all
issues.
had conditions,
and
we all
and
understood.
it wasn't hidden. It wasn't hidden. You were able to be who you needed to be. So then it took a lot of added stress off your behaviours. You could just be you, and by taking those pressures off, you started to enjoy it more. Yeah, and you didn't play up more, whereas you played up more because you were pretending to be Jack the lad. You wanted to try and fit in, and it didn't work. You just got into trouble from it.
So was it then the school's decision for me to, because they put me on a reduced timetable, and then that made you have to finish your job, and then obviously not long after they then said goodbye.
Well, eventually, I had a meeting with them, with the council as well, and they didn't know where to put you. So the only thing originally that they came up with was that you went to boarding school.
Yeah.
And I said no way. I don't have children for me not to look after my own child. And so they had to then come up with something else, and that's when they found you the school which was out of county, and then they had to provide the transport because it was out of county, because they didn't have anything in county that was suitable.
Because it's a lot of, obviously people don't know this, but it's actually illegal to exclude a child that's got a condition.
Right.
So obviously you wouldn't know that at the time.
No.
But how they do it is they do this managed move.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not them saying he has to go.
Yeah.
But it's we think.
Yeah, it'd be
that
best.
It would be best.
Yeah.
And then you were sort of given the situation of if he stays here, he won't do any GCSEs. He won't progress.
Yeah.
And that gives you no other ultimatum.
Yeah.
So yeah, did you feel judged as a parent though?
I think every parent can feel judged, but definitely, especially taking you out in supermarkets, or because you used to have to be on reins because you couldn't see no danger, you'd just run.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you used to have to be on reins, and then if you went into like a paddy, you used to just lay on the floor kicking and screaming, and I just used to stand there and just watch you.
Yeah.
And wait until you'd finished, and then I'd get loads of parents coming along and just looking at us all the time.
Do you feel like it's really important to educate your children with conditions?
Yeah, and other children without.
Yeah.
More so, I think that's most important, is to try and educate them, because I've always said that you've not been brought up with us, we've been brought up with you. Yeah, so we've had to adapt
your way of living to how I live.
Yeah, in to a certain extent.
Well, things like going out, you'd have to let me know 2 weeks beforehand. Or coming home.
So you have to adapt. So so it's basically, we're not bringing you up. It's like you've brought us up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it'd be like, I remember coming home from school, 6 o'clock, it would have to be Yu-Gi-Oh, on the telly and things like that.
And like your dinner.
Yeah.
It was only tuna pasta.
Yeah.
So I'd have to get that ready, and I knew I used to be sat in here, and I used to always, as soon as you come through that door, I'd always shout, "Are you all right?"
Yeah.
And just sheerly from the tone of your voice, I would know if you were or not.
Yeah.
And if you weren't, I just never said a word to you. I used to let you just go off upstairs, and then I used to go up and I'll say to you, "Do you want to talk?" And you'd say no, and you'd say fine. And before I even got out the door, you used to then say, "No, it's all right, I'll tell you." You always sort of said, but yeah, I knew when to leave you alone, to have those few minutes to reflect before then I used to speak to you. Because just going wading in, it's too much other pressure, because you've got somebody else going on at you. And then just used to switch it and say, okay, what if you were the other side of the coin as such, and you were experienced what they had experienced, how would that make you feel? Yeah. And that was a way of educating you. And again, educating parents. It's important to educate parents.
Yeah.
Because to me, as long as their child hasn't got anything wrong with them, they don't want to know. Yeah.
What's the biggest, last question, what do you feel, what's the one thing you'd like people to take away from this talk, parents, teachers, government, and what do you think they can do to improve things?
Well, it is about educating. Time factor has a lot to do with it. So diagnosis needs to be a lot quicker. People need to see specialists a lot quicker. Not like 2-year waiting list. That is just ridiculous. Like a 2-year waiting list. It was 8 months for you all them years ago, and now it's just getting worse and worse. It is a time, because it's added pressures for everybody, because parents do want that diagnosis. They cry out to have that diagnosis, because at least they can understand some of it and hopefully educate other people to understand as well. That's what it is. Yeah, sometimes they're naughty, sometimes it's because of this. Yeah, or you can educate them is to say, okay, well, if you're going to take them out, they need to know where they're going, what time they're going to likely to be there, what time they're going to come home. So they have to learn new ways of interacting as well.
No, thank you for talking to us and being honest. I know sometimes the terminology might not be correct. or what you necessarily mean. I know what you mean, and you know what you mean, which is
so when I say I'm going to give you a good beating tonight,
a hug. But no, thank you, and I'm proud that you're my mum, and
I'm proud of you as well. You've done really well. To me, you've beaten all statistics. And again, don't let children always get away with stuff and blame it on the condition, because it's not always down to it. And sometimes parents have got to take on board that it could be that it's their parenting skills and that they choose to let them get away with it because it's easier, and I get that. We're all guilty of it, and I get it. It's an easier option, but in the long run, it just becomes harder. Because then it becomes a situation where you think that that's easy to just let them do whatever, and that's when they spiral out of control, and things then escalate, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and then all of a sudden you won't know where you are with them, or what they're doing, or what trouble they're getting into.
And again, I always say about like the naughty behaviour thing, you can have naughty behaviour, but the reason doesn't have to be because it's autism. It could be because their father left home at a young age, or they're around the wrong crowd,
or they haven't got a sweet what they wanted. You're still going to get those elements of behaviour.
Absolutely.
Because even though they've got autism, they've still got those normal behaviours, and it's establishing which is which.
But then what is normal anyway? I mean, normal makes me laugh, because I always go, normal is just the default of how many things are around us.
But it's what we're brought up in. It's the environment that we know. It's what we've been educated. It's what we've been told is naughty.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that is right.
No.
If you look back,
if you're told you're being naughty for that certain thing of kicking off because you haven't got a certain sweet.
But what I'm sort of getting at is, for instance, many years ago, women wouldn't have had to vote, or domestic abuse and domestic things happening, police didn't get involved with. But back then that would have been normal. But didn't make it right.
No.
And as time goes on, we start to learn actually
it's wrong.
It's wrong. But everyone perceives it as normal because it's the standard thing around them.
Exactly.
And
it's the norm. What they call the norm.
But it's about challenging that to schools, government, teachers, employment, and educating people that just because what seems to be the norm is the norm, it isn't.
No.
And definitely for us, it's not.
No.
Because as you say, you always explained to me growing up, my condition, a neurotypical brain was like this. And my brain was like this. Nothing wrong with that, but majority of people's brain works like that, and the world that we live in accommodates for people that live like that. And that's what makes it hard. Because you're going.
But then you've got one of the most intelligent people that suffer with ADHD and autism, because I always say that it's people like you that make the world revolve into the future. Because you think outside the box. Whereas we are literally in the box. Our brains won't focus to think outside of it. But yours will. And it's people like you that we depend on. So you've got Mozart, you've got Bill Gates. Einstein.
Yeah.
I mean, that just goes to show that it's people like that.
And then if you look at sort of like Bill Gates' social skills,
Yeah.
you know, it's very sort of awkward.
Yeah.
But then that's, as you
The
say,
same,
you
yeah.
always said to me, you know, when
They're
you meet one person.
eccentric as well, can't
Yeah.
they? Yeah.
But then when you meet one person, and when you meet one person who's autistic, you meet one person that's autistic. So it's always going to be a range.
Yeah.
And it's just about gauging where you need to support that individual.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more autistic people in, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps 20 years younger than me.
Especially girls, because girls just didn't get a look in because it was very much a condition which they thought
boys.
Girls couldn't get. And now girls are going out in the world and not knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, yourself, you look at people and you think, I reckon they're a bit autistic.
But I just reckon they're autistic. Or if they're not. I don't believe a bit of autistic.
Well,
it's a bit like
you
saying...
know, the terminology would be mild.
I wouldn't even use that.
Yeah.
I just think you're autistic, but it affects you in different ways.
Yeah.
A bit like a mixed board, you know, it's a social, you know, social engineering you're really good at, but verbal skills not so great.
Like yours, motor skills.
Yeah, except mine's a good example. Motor skills is all the way down here. It's virtually nothing.
Yeah.
But then my social skills on that soundboard are really good.
Yeah. And this is why I was saying about education.
Yeah.
Education doesn't matter. It's okay that you're intelligent, but then what can you do to back it up?
Yeah, if you've not got the verbal skills to be able to back it up.
Or if you've not got the motor skills.
Yeah.
You might be in a job that you're very intelligent, but you might have to display certain elements.
Yeah.
You might not then be able to do that.
No.
So to me, you need the normal everyday skills before you even think about getting exams. And to me, it's more important to have those social life skills.
Yeah. And the reason I always get hung up on mild and severe is because there's so many parents that go for an autism diagnosis and then they're told, well, they're not autistic enough. And it's, you know, I mean, I know that we got turned away from the personal independent payment because I was well dressed.
We got turned down for your disability that you'd had from the age of 3. We went in, we had to be assessed, which then we was assessed from a physio.
Yeah.
Not even someone that dealt with special needs, and I think is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
And then we were turned down because you were well dressed, you could walk, and you were well nourished.
Yeah.
And those were the reasons.
So literally, they expect you just to present in the worst.
Yeah, I might as well have took you in there in a wheelchair.
Bin bag.
Yeah.
Dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And skinny.
Yeah.
All skin and bone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no one.
That's how you would have had to have gone in there, headless.
Yeah, and it's just terrible.
Yeah.
Because then people don't get the help.
No.
You know?
Exactly. And I mean, you'd had that from the age of 3, but then when it turned into PIP, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and what got me as well is that I know so many parents that are still getting their disability.
Who went in the same sort of way.
They didn't even have to be assessed.
Oh, okay.
So it's the luck of the draw. Again, they pinpoint and just at random pick whoever to go in to say these people are being assessed, but they're not. They're just at random. So there's a hell of a lot of people that just get accepted. Yeah, we give you that.
Yeah.
Don't bother coming in. We don't need to see you. But then we walk in, and because you were well nourished, I fed you well and dressed you well.
Yeah.
And you could walk.
Yeah.
We were turned down, flat right, and we were assessed from a physiotherapist.
And then you appealed as well.
I appealed.
And they still.
Yeah. I mean, all due to you being well nourished. because it goes on a point system.
From someone that doesn't even know anything about it.
Yeah. Or you.
Yeah.
As an individual.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah.
Well, thank you, as say, for coming on. Thank you, Mum.
You're welcome.